Hi, my name is Julian Varas, and I'm the CEO and founder of Training Competence. I'm going to speak about our product C1DO1. We first need to understand some practical things. In order for us to transfer a skill, it is very important that we comprehend the Miller's pyramid. Before we do things on actual real scenarios, let's say a surgeon to actually operate on a patient, we need to first train ourselves, and this goes through different levels. The first level is the knowing, and usually this level you can achieve it by reading books, uh, watching PowerPoint presentations, etc. But then you need to demonstrate things, and usually this third level we are not used to assess it. In order to assess it, before we, in the example of a surgeon, for example, before we demonstrate our actual skills on a patient, we should at least do some kind of simulation, and that kind of examination needs to be addressed so that you can achieve this type of skills. This is very relevant because usually the type of test we are going to apply is related to the level of the Miller's pyramid. So at the first level, we need some knowledge. At the second level, we will, for example, do a clinical case context type of test. Let's say I will start asking a medical student if they know how to confront how to manage a patient with diabetes, and not only what is diabetes, but how to manage that patient. But then in the third level, I would ask the same student to perform actually how he or she would really manage the patient. So maybe with an actor, we can simulate the patient, uh, and that kind of assessment. So the final goal is to really do it well in the real scenario. This can be applied also in musicians. For example, before the concert, they need to train, and they will go from theory to actual practice, and in the end to the concert. The same with sportsmanship. Any kind of sports, you need to train before the actual championships. So what is needed in order for us to transfer skills? We have developed this type of really easy framework to understand in Simulación UC, that is the simulations lab at Católica University of Chile, where I am the vice chair. And the idea behind this framework is to understand where usually the bottleneck is at, so that we can address this bottleneck in order for us to then be able to transfer skills. The first pillar, we need three pillars in order to transfer remotes and to transfer practical skills. The first pillar would be the space and infrastructure. Usually, let's say I want to teach you how to play guitar. You would need a guitar. So the trainee will need to have access to to a guitar, or maybe also to a very well conditioned room. We will also might need a microphone, maybe a streaming system and a camera. So that's part of the first pillar. The second pillar is what is the training program, is what the trainee must do in this guitar. Is he going to do basic guitar? The instructional design behind this needs to be very well validated and established. By validation, for example, in the healthcare area, we mean that it would be great to understand that if the minimum competencies achieved after a training program are then transferred to the real scenario. So, for example, if a surgeon simulates how to train on any specific surgery, well, they will be able to do that specific surgery on real patients after the training program. The third pillar is the instructor network. And with this, what I mean is who will be providing the feedback. We need to understand that in order for us to do a learning curve as trainees, we need someone to improve our mistakes. Well, and usually these professors, these teachers, these instructors need to understand how to give feedback. So it is very relevant for us to know and to be able to identify who will be doing the teaching, but also to train these teachers to be able to actually give a nice feedback so that then the learner can actually learn. This is an example that we developed as a pillar one at the Católica University, and just showing you a first pillar related to my area. I'm a surgeon, and this is a laparoscopic simulation. You can see that we can perfuse tissues. We can have a simulator of laparoscopy, and the image is pretty neat. You can not only simulate, for example, how to do some suturing, but you can also simulate an important bleeding and how to repair it. This is only the first pillar, and by any chance, this means that you have already established a training center. You do need the second and third pillar. I'm gonna now show you how a second pillar is established. This is again just an example from my area. This was one of the first training programs we validated, and it's called the Advanced Laparoscopy Training Program. Trainees here are expected to be able to hand sew with the laparoscopic instruments, this intestine, in the simulators, and they need to complete bowel anastomosis. This means to join one intestine to the other by hand sewing. And as you can see, we established a complete gymnasium in Católica University, where actually real teachers that are trained in this specific course are there to assist the trainees and give feedback whenever they want and whenever they need, and also when the trainer understands that a feedback is needed. So how did we validate this training program? We first did a learning curve, and we understand that with 25 residents, they were part of the general surgery program in Chile. We wanted to understand how this session, how after training in every session of this training program, the learning curve was achieved. And as you can see, after 16 sessions of about 2 hours average, you can see that these trainees actually acquire a very high performance level. And we can measure this using global rating scales that are validated and published internationally. And we can understand that before the training, this is the group before the training, so this is the initial assessment, we can see that this group is very heterogeneous. Usually this group has talented persons, but most of them have a very low performance. And after the training, you can see that most trainees, most residents end up having a very high performance, even higher than the expert threshold level that we know in this case is over 20 points out of 25. You can see that from a performance point of view, the worst trainee, from a technical point of view, is much better than the most talented person at the beginning of the training. So this means that we don't care about talent. What we want is someone to be able to practice and to achieve a learning curve. But to be able to play in this simulator doesn't mean that we are actually now being able to operate really good on a patient. We need to do this type of validation. So what we did next was exactly that. We measured these super trainees trained with our simulation training program, this methodology. And we then wanted to compare this to general surgeons graduated from traditional programs but without simulation. And what happened was really amazing. General surgeons, first year junior trainees from the general surgery residency had much better performance compared to general surgeons graduated from over 5 years of training, but with no simulation training. Even the worst of the trainees was much better significantly better compared to the general surgeons from a performance point of view. So the skills were transferred to the real scenario. Now, let's talk about the third pillar. Who is doing the teaching? And this is very important. Who does the teaching at this kid in the soccer team of Barcelona? And usually the main problem we have especially in healthcare areas, but mostly in all kind of higher education, if you're trying to acquire a technical skill, usually what we will do is we will call an expert in that skill. And this would be some kind of example of what we do in the healthcare area. We call Messi. Well, now he's in Paris Saint-Germain. I'm sorry for that, but we would call Messi to train this kid at the Barcelona soccer team, and this, you know, this has no sense at all. What we should do is we should actually train trainers, and the soccer sports have already done this. They have trainers that are dedicated to the specific level of these kids. They know exactly what type of feedback they need for that level of performance and how to improve their skills to the next level. They don't call Messi, and Messi has no time at all to be available for this type of training. Actually, we want Messi to be playing and to be winning some cups. But for example, in the area of surgery, usually who we call is the most expert laparoscopists to go and give some tips and tricks to this trainer, to these trainees. And what we need is someone to be trained to give feedback. And we have established this type of network. We have professionalized now a network of teachers who are not even surgeons. We have now trained general practitioners, veterinarians, and they have been taught on how to give very good feedback on the advanced laparoscopy training program. Why? Because we know that if they can take a trainee to the level over 20 points of score, as I showed you as an example, then we know that these trainees will do better in the operating room. So we don't need Messis to establish a professional network who might even get better results compared to an expert in a skill but not a good teacher. So how about if we can take these three pillars with technology to be able to now train someone, but not with in-person feedback? That was one of our questions that we wanted to answer. We wanted to understand if we could train a surgeon in Chile with in-person feedback. Is it possible with technology to train a surgeon in Peru, in Ecuador, in the United States, for example? And we developed C1DO1, and I'm going to show you as an example the surgery course that I recently showed you the results. So now a trainee can be in the US or in Mexico. They can go to this training center and they can have access to a tutorial videos. Then they will perform in the simulator and try to understand if they are doing things the right way. They will simply record the video of the session and then upload the video of the session to the C1DO1 Lab Cloud. Once it's in the cloud, it will be distributed and the surgical simulation experts will be able to evaluate these videos and provide specific feedback. They will be able to pause the video anywhere they want. They will be able to attach video capsules as a response, audio memos, some text messages, and they can even draw in the screen to understand and to show an input and to give this type of input to the trainee, so that then the trainee will receive these inputs and will be able to watch his or her own video in the platform in his or her cell phone. And the idea with this is that whenever they feel ready to go back to training, they simply go and perform all of the feedbacks that they have already received. They will also be able to assess and evaluate the teacher back. They will put a score like an Uber driver. So whenever you get out of the Uber, you can score from 1 to 5 if you like how the service was. Here, the same. They can do this to the teacher so that we can improve the system. In order to validate this type of system, what we did was we compared the in-person feedback. This is the control group over here. And we did some training of residents that are at other general surgery programs in Chile, but far away from our capital and where our training center is, far away from Santiago. These were over 400 miles distance from our training center. And as you can see, both groups really improved after having very good feedback. So both groups achieve a learning curve and they get to the 20 points that we want because we know that these trainees will then perform good in the OR. So we are we now know that we can transfer skills and that we can train a surgeon remotely and asynchronously. The tutorial, the tutoring doesn't happen on a live sequence. Instead, it is asynchronous. This means that the tutor will have 72 hours to do the assessment of the videos. With this, they can take advantage of their own time and go at their own pace, the tutors, the instructors. So, and we have also demonstrated that the trainees become faster. So they are better and faster doing the same procedure. They have achieved a great performance. We've been doing this for a couple of years, even before the COVID era. And so far, we've trained many surgeons. This was in June. This was published in June 2020, but now we are over 400 trainees and counting every day. Many are joining our network of established training centers. We have established over 14 training centers in Latin America, in Central America, and now in the US, in UCSF, University of California, San Francisco, we have our first training center in the US. And the question after this kind of successful methodology was implemented was, well, how about other healthcare areas? Is it possible to train other healthcare areas? And the COVID made that possible because at least in Chile, we were having quarantines and no one was able to move from one city to another and be able to travel to Santiago to train themselves. For example, if they wanted to be trained in mechanical ventilation, in how to do prone positioning, or how to handle the PPE, or how to use an orotracheal intubation. So we developed this type of courses in the C1DO1 platform. And it was great for us to understand that in less than 2 months, over 1,800 trainees were actually taught in these skills with over 6,700 feedbacks or inputs, such as audio, drawing, text, videos, etc. And this is amazing because, well, what happens if we know now that we can train any type of skills, especially in the healthcare area? So just to gather and to summarize a little of how this works is someone will be able, a student, a trainee will be able to train a practical skill or any type of skill that will require a feedback. So it can also be a non-technical skill. Let's say someone needs to learn better how to communicate. You can record yourself with an actor or with any other role-playing system, and then someone will be able to give you a feedback. But the first step is, of course, you need to record yourself, and then from home or a training center, and then upload this to the C1DO1 cloud. Once it's in the cloud, the idea is that it will get distributed to a network of teachers, and that these teachers are already trained on how to use the platform and they know how to give a nice feedback to these trainees. Then the video goes back to the trainee, and the trainees collect this video portfolio of their own, and these are their own videos, so they can watch themselves and understand where the mistakes have been committed, and then to improve these mistakes is much easier. They go again to the lab or at home or wherever they are training, and this cycle repeats until you achieve a learning curve. So in the meantime, as this is digitalized and not anymore an analog experience between a teacher and trainee, we are gathering very important data. This type of data is being collected to course optimization, but also to create artificial intelligence algorithms through deep learning. This is an example of the laparoscopic course, the basic laparoscopic course, where we are applying this type of algorithms, and we are now having over 90% of correlation, for example, between an artificial intelligence evaluator, an AI evaluator, and a real human. And that's amazing. You can start automatizing evaluations, and then why not this type of assessments to include also an AI feedback and automatization of a complete skill class. We've been expanding this to the complete healthcare area of our Faculty of Medicine. And as you can see, physical therapy, nursing, phonoaudiology, audiology, and many other areas have been benefited with this methodology and technology. You can see here a trainee going by herself to the lab, and she saw the tutorial videos, she had the materials, the first pillar, and she is replicating what she thinks is the right thing to do. This is the teacher's window, so we know how a teacher is then delivering an audio feedback, a drawing, and many other types of feedback. Then the trainee will receive these inputs and will be able to perform again and again. So it is a very easy way to establish a learning curve, but to also obtain data from that learning curve and to make decisions from that learning curve. Decisions such as this, we knew that our classic our intensive course, where usually in the undergraduate, the med school trainees usually have to train this type of procedures, such as thoracocentesis or paracentesis, that is taking some liquid out of the thorax or the abdomen. When the way we trained them classically was that we had to do an intensive course of 2 hours. So one trainer, one expert person had to be with a lot of kids and spend at least 2 hours with them, giving them feedback. And the results of that was that only 40% of the trainees were able to acquire the minimum competencies to pass the course. But when we separate this in 2 different sessions with asynchronous digital feedback using C1DO1, only 2 sessions of less than 30 minutes each, you can see how trainees improve much better, because they can process the feedback, they can process what they're doing well and what they're doing bad, and then they can go and do it again. This type of tools are specifically designed for evaluating or correcting practical or technical skills. And this is very interesting because our technology is now evolving to become very precise in how to give a digital feedback. And of course, the opportunities are amazing. You can train trainees in many skills from their own houses. And if they fail, they can take the course again or repeat sessions. And this allows to have, to have trainees that quit less, especially in traditional higher education institutions. We do need to focus in how to do a train the trainers course. This means that we need to develop our trainers and to make them even better. And the idea behind this is that as now we understand what is a good feedback, because we can analyze this type of inputs, they are digital, so we can understand if a teacher is doing a good job or a bad job. But we can also understand this from a student perspective, because we know if the trainee improves or not between one session to another. Well, the idea here is that we can establish a digital course to train this experts. So it is really scalable, very easy to scale. We can then have networks of teachers in any type of skill. And this is only an example of how to teach a trainer in healthcare related procedures. But if transferring surgical skills is feasible through a platform with validated courses and feedback, why not do it for other practical or technical skills? So these are examples that we're doing with other higher education institutions. And as you can see, this is the vision of an expert assessing the video. They are watching and giving their own feedbacks on how to measure electricity. Here we can see another type of course where they are teaching how to do programming. And as you can see, they can upload any kind of rating scale to the C1DO1 platform and then give specific feedbacks. Let's say they want to improve a coding at the specific moment that they detect the problem that the trainee is having, they can draw in the screen and tell them how to improve that code at the specific moment. So it's not only for classic practical skills such as surgery, but you can improve anything that needs feedback. This is another example of a trainee that is trying to develop something related to electricity courses, and you can see how the teacher can give a lot of feedback and how this can be applied in many types of skills. So the possibilities are enormous, and we are expanding fast. The idea of C1DO1 facilitating institutions to transfer remote and asynchronous practical skills is amazing. You can apply it in so many areas, and I'm glad I'm very thankful for this opportunity that you allow me to share our experience with you guys. So if you have any question, please write me to my email that is right there, or you can simply text me. I'm now based in the US for a couple of months and years, and the idea for me is to try to expand this not only at UCSF, but everywhere. Happy to receive any questions.